branch from the University of Massachusetts Amherst. She was invited to the university to speak about gender inequality. So since it's International Women's Day, we wanted her to speak about historical problems, about historical situations, historical conditions that help us to understand contemporary gender inequality. So first, tell us about your book. How is it called, and why did you decide to write this book?
Thank you for having me. My book is called Opportunity Denied: Limiting Black Women to Devalued Work. It is based on 100 years of focused research from 1860 to 1960, and I do some extended analysis to 2008. But what I was interested in understanding is why were Black women poor, and why was there and how was their poverty different from other groups, in particular Black men and white women, both of whom had exited poverty many years earlier. And the main conclusion of the book reaches is that occupational exclusion from good jobs, desirable jobs, such as clerical work, were the norm in America prior to this point. And it meant that Black women were restricted to bad jobs. So they worked in farm labor, they worked on the fringe of the factories, and they worked primarily as domestic servants. And that picture remained the same for 100 years.
Okay. Can we extend the main conclusions of your book to Colombia, or what do you see in Colombia in this visit, like regarding gender inequality and the hierarchy of occupation in the country?
Definitely. The trends that underlie the patterns in the U.S., which are that Black women were suited for certain types of jobs, and the white women were suited for certain types of jobs, and Black men were suited for their own types of jobs holds in Colombia. To the extent that the justification for why Black women are domestic servants is that they're good at it, they're suited for it, they're desirable. It's not seen as restriction, right? It's seen as natural and normal. And to the extent that that pattern holds, that limits Black women's opportunity. And that's across cities, both Bogota and Cali, where you see this restriction of Black women, or Afro-Colombian women in this context, to domestic service jobs. But you see opportunities for white women in a different set of occupations, like clerical work, where the majority of secretaries are mixed or white in the Colombian context. That is what happened in the U.S. context. So although there is gender segregation, where women are restricted to certain types of jobs, that there you see racial divisions within gender groups, such that white women have a segment of jobs that are assigned to them that tend to be better jobs, more secure, more stable, and Black women have a different set of jobs that are less secure, lower paid, and less stable. And even when white women and Black women occupy the same types of jobs, such as domestic servants, which some white women do in the Colombian context, white women are paid more. So you see this inequality persisting here as well.
Thank you. If we add to this picture the condition of forced displacement, how does this worsen the conditions of Black women in the country?
It's hard to describe quickly, in the sense that forced displacement changes everything. Part of the story that emerges from the U.S. context is that Blacks moved from the rural areas where the plantations were to the cities, and such that now the majority of Blacks are found in urban areas, not in rural areas. And so they suffer the challenges of the city, but they are not removed from the modernization attempts that are common in the city. So running water, electricity, all those things which are now common in rural areas too. Whereas in the Colombian context, the segregation to the areas that are less developed, but also the constant warfare in those areas has meant that the basic fight for survival for Black women in those areas has limited progress. And so to the extent that you need food and water and security, you can't think about education. What you're trying to do is ensure the survival of your family on a day-to-day basis. And to the extent that the warfare poses the challenge of who can you trust. So it's not just, well, there's fighting, but who was my enemy? Who was protecting me? Who was harming me? The lines are very blurry when the violence is prevalent and when it's been as long-lasting as it's been in the Pacific for Afro-Colombian women. And so the ways that they have been able to survive all of these years, the opportunities that the land provided for self-sustainability go away when you're displaced. So the ways of being and knowing and doing and securing oneself are really challenged. So the exposure of not only oneself to rape or to assault or just the fear of that is a real issue that hinders progress. And so that dimension really changes everything for Afro-Colombian women.
Right. And closing your visit to Colombia, what is the final thought? What is the thought that you can leave us to continue thinking about gender inequality and how can we overcome it?
Is there ever just one? I think part of the story that really needs to be clear in Colombia, that it's clear to me as an outsider, is still not clear in Colombia, is that we are all Colombian. To the extent that Afro-Colombian women are seen as those women in that group who belong in that place, that normalizes an exclusion that is a limit to real opportunity. To the extent that we are Colombian, that Afro-Colombians don't just belong in the Pacific, but they belong in the cities. They belong in Cali and they belong in Bogota, to the extent that they belong and should have opportunities there, not just in the ghettos, in the outlying areas, in the shanty towns that arise, but in the cities and in the buildings and in the employment offices. That's a key transformation that still needs to happen in the Colombian community. That it's not, we can exclude them. And again, when you say it that way, no one's the bad guy. No one's wrong, because that's just, they belong there. That is their place. That is not just their place. Their place is here too. And so to the extent that their place is here, they should not be excluded.